Hey y'all, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to check out another one of my videos. And today I'm super excited to be sharing with you guys a bunch of looks plus my review of the new Nomad Cosmetics Shanghai palette. I've been using over the past couple days and have used it a total of 6 times, and I'm ready to come here on camera and share with you guys my thoughts and opinions. I think I'm going to have a total of 4 plus one bonus one where I use this palette in combination with the pretty new Iceland Fire and Ice palette from Nomad Cosmetics as well. I had a lot of people saying that they'd like to see this combined with the Shanghai palette because there is a lot more depth and intensity, especially when it comes to the matte, than you're going to find in the Shanghai palette, which if you haven't seen the Shanghai palette, I have to open it like this because I don't want to blind you with the mirrors on the side. But yeah, that is what we're going to be doing in today's video. I was sent the Shanghai palette as a gift from the brand, so I'm very, very thankful that they wanted to send it to me. I have said thank you to them personally a couple times, and I just wanted to publicly say it here in this video. Thank you so very much. This was gifted to me, but I'm still going to be as honest as I usually am when I do these reviews. And also, just to clarify, the Iceland Fire and Ice palette I did purchase with my own money. There's only going to be one tutorial that features a little bit of this, so this video isn't really focused around the Iceland palette. It's mainly about the Shanghai palette, but yeah, we're going to do a bunch of tutorials. And if you're new to my videos, I like to structure my tutorials in going in depth into each of the shadows that I use and giving you guys my review on each of these shadows. And then at the very end, I will give you guys my review, but it's more of my overall review and my overall thoughts and feelings of the palette as a whole. I always leave timestamps on my video so you can hop around to the parts of the video that are most beneficial for you. So yeah, with that said, why don't we just go ahead and dive into it, and I can get into the nitty gritty with you guys and share with you guys my thoughts on each one of the shadows that I used in the tutorials.
Okay, so as we dive right in, I just want to let you guys know, if you're curious about like eyeshadow primer that I use for all of these looks, you can find that information down in my description box. But anyway, I'm taking Yin and I'm going right in. It's such a pale shade, and I didn't use any type of concealer base to really help it stand out, that it just gives a very light wash of color. Honestly, just kind of like a skin tone color. So following that up, I went ahead and took that next shade there. I'm not going to be saying names just because I feel like I will butcher most of them. And I'm just taking that on a smaller brush and packing that right into my crease, and this shade went on really nicely. I never noticed any issues with them wanting to stick or anything like that, so that went on well. And then I'm just taking some Louise base and I'm cutting out my full cut crease. I do not do this very often, so I was really scared, but overall I think it turned out just fine. From there, I'm just taking that red shimmer and I'm packing that on the outer half of it. I was going for a very Valentine's Day look, so that is what we're doing. And as you can see, this packs on really nicely. It has a lot of shimmer to it, it has a lot of color to it, and yeah, it was just a really easy shade to work with. I used a very small brush because I wanted to be precise, so that's really the only reason it took me so long. But if I had gone in with like a bigger brush and didn't mind being messier, I feel like, you know, with the shimmer it would have taken me 2 seconds to apply it. It's very pigmented, very smooth, goes on very easy. Taking that pink shade, I'm doing the same thing on the inner half and putting this on. Again, I have a small brush, so that's why it's taking so many dips back in, because I wanted to make sure my lines stayed really nice and precise, so that's why I'm using such a small brush. But even with the small brush, I thought it went on really nicely. It was very pigmented and took no work to apply onto my lid there, and the two blended together beautifully. Like, I went back and forth a couple times and it was just like boom, done. It was blended together very seamlessly looking. From here on out, I just went ahead and finished out my lower lash line, which I apologize for it being blurry. I moved a little bit too much, but anyway, I just took a very light combination of both those shades that I used in my crease and applied that and blended that into my lower lash line. And then for my inner corner, I went ahead and used that one shade Sun, and I applied that as my inner corner highlight. And as you can see, wow, I was floored with how beautiful and sparkly that inner shade was. It is a little messy as you go to apply it. That is my only con. I think if I wet this, it would probably have been easier to work with because it is just so soft. It did want to get a little messy. But anyway, after that, I finished out with my lipstick, and that was the look. So here's a close-up. I didn't use any glitter glue, and by the end of a very long day, there was very minimal wear up into my crease. So I was very happy to see that even though these are super shimmery, very buttery smooth, they're not so crazy smooth that they get all up into my brow. Overall, with it being such a harsh, you know, line between the shimmer cut crease and then the matte in my crease, I was expecting to see a lot more messiness by the end of the night, but that was not the case. I thought it lasted really nicely, and I was very pleased with how the shimmers performed. Alright, moving on into my second look, I'm taking that shade Bund, I think, and putting that into my crease with a little bit more of a precise brush and working on building this up. This shade went on very easily. As you can see, I think it's very nicely pigmented and took honestly no work to get the look that I was going for, and the edges, even as I was blending it out, I felt like we were blending out really nicely. After that, I went ahead and took the next shade, and I'm putting that right on top with a bit of a fluffier brush. This also went on really easy. Again, took very little work to get it to show up and blend it into the next shade. And then once that was on, I went ahead and took the Black Moon shade, and I put this on the outer corner and blended that up into that first initial shade. And I also kind of brought it more inward towards the inner corner to add a lot of depth to this look. Now it is a black, and a very nicely pigmented black at that, so it did take a little bit of time to mesh it into the other shades. But while it did take some time to work it in and get that effortless blend between all the shadows, it wasn't difficult, it wasn't hard, it was very nicely pigmented, and I thought I got the look that I was going for. I got the blend that I wanted fairly easily, even though it's such an intense shade. And then after that, I put on some glitter glue, and then I'm going on with that first shimmer shade, which is going to be Harmony, and I'm applying that on the inner corner, kind of focusing more on the first third of the eye look. They were very easy to work with, very nicely pigmented. This shade Harmony is more of a lighter shade, so it's a little less pigmented in that sense, but still went on really nicely. And then from there, I took that purple shimmer and I put that all over the lid and just spent a little time blending and meshing those two shimmers together, and then working to blend it into the matte. And this whole process I thought was fairly easy. Harmony and that purple shade is a relatively drastic difference between the two, but I feel like I got the blend and the mesh between the two fairly easy. And then of course, going into the black, I was very happy with how easy that purple kind of blended out. Moving on though, I finished out the rest of my face, and then I came back to do my lower lash line, and I just took a touch of that Moon shade, the black, and I blended that really close to my lash line. And then I took that first shade Bun that I used in my crease, and I used that to blend out the black. And once again, very seamless blend, very easy to work with these two. But anyway, moving on to my inner corner, I once again used Sun because this was such a beautiful shade. I just felt like it suited this look so very much. Very shimmery, very shiny. And then yeah, that was pretty much the look. I really like how this look turned out, and as you can see, I think the mattes blended so beautifully together. Like, it was very easy to get that blend that you saw there. And then of course the shimmers are beautiful. I don't think it comes across as beautiful on camera as it does in person, but trust me when I say that for the amount of sparkle you can see on camera, there is so much more sparkle in these shimmers in real life. They're just absolutely beautiful in person. Wear time for this also was absolutely beautiful. I had no issues at all. It lasted very beautiful all day. And yeah, this was my second look. Okay, next up, I was inspired by the colors of the year, the gray and the yellow, so I decided to focus on those for this look. I went in with that shade and I blended that into my crease, and as you can see, I thought it built up really nicely. I went in very softly because I wasn't sure how pigmented this shade was going to be, but it was very easy to work with, and once again, took no work to get the amount of pigment that I wanted to see in my crease. And so then I just went in with the black shade Moon, and I packed that on my outer corner and blended that kind of up into that gray just to get a nice effortless blend between the two. Again, super easy to get that blend. I was very impressed with how quickly I could get the blend between the gray and the black to look very seamless and effortless. And so I just put on a little bit of glitter glue, and then I moved on to my lid, which I ended up using that yellow Golden Prosperity shade, and I packed that all over my lid. As I said, I was going for the colors for 2021, so I wanted to keep it pretty simple with just doing the yellow and the gray. But to help soften where that shimmer goes into the black, I did take a little bit more of that gray shade and I packed that on the outer corner, and that really did a lot to help it not be such a hard ending where the shimmer stopped and went into the black. So I really like adding that little touch there. But yeah, that's basically going to be the look. I finished out the rest of my makeup, keeping it really nice and close because I didn't want it to get too dark down there. And then I just took that gray and I used it to blend out and soften the whole look. And then of course for my inner corner, I went ahead and used Sun. I am so sorry I used Sun in so many looks, but trust me, it's just a beautiful shade. So I used that once again. But yeah, that's going to be the look. Wear time for this, also very impressed. I mean, I used a glitter glue again as I did in previous looks, so I wasn't too surprised, but it lasted really nicely, held up really well, and I like how the look turned out. I mean, I feel like I'm often intimidated by grays because I feel like they can look very patchy, but overall, the end result of this look I was very pleased with. I like how it turned out and I liked how it wore. So overall, really happy with how this look turned out. Alright, for this next look, which is the look I'm wearing in my intro, I'm starting out with the greens. This is all about the greens, this eye look. I was so excited to dive into the greens in this palette, so I'm starting out with that darker green shade and I'm putting that right into my crease. Again, this shade is just so beautifully pigmented. It went on beautifully, and before I knew it, like I was done blending and it would look great. So I went on and moved to that snake shade, which is a lighter green, and I used that to blend and kind of diffuse and soften out the darker green. And again, took no work. It was very easy to get these two to blend and mesh together, and I absolutely love that ombre from the darker green to that lighter lime green. Very beautiful there. Once I liked how the outer corner worked, I wanted to use the black because I wanted to have a very dark outer corner, but I didn't want it to be all like just black because I feel like, I don't know, I've done that in so many previous looks. So I put on the black, as you can see, and just kind of packed it on there. And then on top of that, I went on with that darker green shade and used that to kind of pack on top of the black and then mesh and blend it out to try to not exactly cover the black because it is a black, but I wanted to turn that black to be more of like a green black, I guess you could say. Once I used a bit of glitter glue, I'm going on with the lid shade, which is going to be that bright green shimmer dragon there, and I'm packing that on. It's absolutely beautiful. I was so excited to get to use this shade because it's one shade that I have been eyeing the whole time ever since I saw the full palette reveal. So I'm packing that on, and once I have that over most of the eyelid, I'm just going to go into the yellow shimmer prosperity or golden prosperity, and I'm putting that right above and using it to really cut the crease. And I feel like this yellow really helped the crease to stand out and pop, just to kind of give that yellow a contrast to all of the green going on my lid. Both of these shimmers went on super nicely. I was very happy with it. Took no work. And then for the lower lash line, I kind of dipped into both the dark green and the black and used that to smudge right against my lower lash line. And then I used Snake, which is the lightest green in the palette, to kind of buff out and blend and diffuse the shade out and kind of connect it back to what I have on top of my eye. And then for my inner corner, once again, I used Sun. I am so sorry that I was so very boring for all of these looks when it comes to my inner corner. I'm not going to excuse it anymore. I honestly just didn't realize I kept using the same shade. But for today, I actually went ahead and also used it as my highlight, like for my face highlight, and I thought it was really pretty. I did it one other time before, but I didn't record it on camera, so just showing you guys what it looks like. There's a good bit of glitter to it, so if you don't like a more messy kind of highlight, glittery type of highlight, you probably wouldn't like this. So yeah, that is going to be the final look. Here is how it turned out. I was so excited to finally do an all green focused eye look. Again, I apologize if it's a little out of focus, but anyway, really like how the final look turned out. Of course, this is going to be my favorite one because it is such a green focused makeup look, and I love that pop of yellow to it. The inner corner is so blinding. So yeah, definitely has to be my favorite look that I created with this palette. Okay, time for a bonus look. I decided to use both the Shanghai and the Iceland palette to create this look since Iceland was released not too long ago. I got some requests to try using them together. But anyway, going into Iceland, I am taking that darker kind of orangey red shade and putting that right into my crease. This shade, again, so beautiful, so pigmented, so easy to get to show up. It takes no work at all. And I'm going right above that to that more kind of mustard yellow / orange shade and using it to blend out the darker shade. And again, so easy to get blends with their mattes. I mean, that's something Nomad does so well with all of the palettes that I've tried. Their mattes blend so effortlessly. Going into the Shanghai palette then, I am taking the black and packing that on the outer corner and then just spending some time with the two previous shades to get a nice blend between the black and the orange. And while the black is such a sharp contrast to the orange, I was pretty happy with how easily I could get them to blend together. And then from the Iceland palette, I took that dark red shimmer and I decided to pack this on the outer corner. I really liked how that blended and kind of stood out a little bit on top of the black and kind of helped to give the outer corner a lot of depth, yes, but not just a boring black. And then going on to the shimmer shades, I'm going to first go into that blue shade down there at the bottom and I'm packing that on the majority of my lid. It takes no work to put on there. It just goes right on, lays really nice. And then I'm going to go in with the sunshade, which is the inner corner highlight I've been using for the whole video. And I wanted to see how it would look packed onto the lid. And as you can see, it works beautifully. Again, takes no work to show up. I was really impressed and really pleased with how this looked using it as a lid shade instead of just an inner corner highlight. And then for my lower lash line, I went ahead into the Iceland palette and took that matte blue. And then to blend out that dark blue, I took that lighter blue right next to it from the Iceland palette and I used that to buff and blend it all out. Once I like how that blend looked, I went in for my inner corner and I decided to take that shimmer kind of icy blue from the Iceland palette and I packed that on. Going back into the Iceland palette, the shimmers are definitely a lot more subtle. They have a little bit more pigment to it and they're still beautiful in their own right. I think they're very stunning, but they don't have the amount of sparkle and almost like glitter sparkle. I don't don't know if it's actually glitter, but it's just so sparkly in the Shanghai palette, whereas the Iceland palette is more of just like a shimmer, very intense and beautiful shimmer, but it's not, doesn't have the amount of sparkle that the Shanghai one does. So anyway, after that, I just finished out with mascara and lipstick, and that is the look. That is how the eyes turned out. I really like this combo of like the fire and ice having so much warmth in the crease with the blue and the white for the lid, and then the blue on the lower lash line, and then the blue liner, which is different for me. Anyway, overall, I really like how this look turned out. I think, as I've already said a million times, that the mattes in the Nomad palettes are just so outstanding, so easy to work with, and between the two Shanghai and Ireland palettes, I found their mattes very consistently amazing formulas, and the really only difference for me personally between the two palettes are the shimmers. There is just something extra special when it comes to the Shanghai palettes. There's just so much more sparkle. But anyway, yeah, that is going to be my final look. That is your little bonus look using both of the newer palettes from Nomad Cosmetics.
Alright, so per usual, I'd love to hear which of the looks that I created you guys like the most, and I hope you guys enjoyed the little bonus tutorial using the Iceland Fire and Ice palette. I'm not going to have a dedicated video reviewing this palette, but I will be reviewing it in my next palette palooza, so at the beginning of March, hopefully I will get my review out on this and I'll share with you guys all the looks that I created. But I just want to throw it in here real quick in this video because this is a very new release. I was just starting to test it out this month when the Shanghai palette launched, so I wanted to include it. Also, size comparison, I guess I can just show you really quick. The Shanghai palette is a decently sized palette. First off, critiques with this palette. I definitely am not a fan of the way it opens. It's just more annoying when I go to actually use this on my desk and I open it. Is it a huge deal? No, but it's something definitely for me personally. I just don't like this whole opening. I get it for the theme of it. I absolutely do understand why they did that, the whole yin and yang. I get that, but just as a practical, like when I'm using it, it's not my favorite. I just prefer it to open as a traditional palette would. But moving past that, the inside of the palette, I love this side of the palette. They said that they formulated and they worked on their shimmer formula to make it extra special, and all the formulation with the shimmers over here, from what I understood, were new, and you can definitely tell, like, using these two palettes, the shimmers in the Iceland palette, and even knowing the Cartagena palette and the Lake Como palette that I used last year, I can see a huge difference with this. So if you're someone who is like all about that shimmer life, you always want your shimmer to sparkle, you always want your shimmer to just be extra special, this is the palette to turn to. While the shimmers in here I think are beautiful, and I would say several of them are definitely very pretty and, you know, stand out, I would say the shimmers as a whole, usually with Nomad palettes, are just very soft and subtle and more just calm shimmers, I guess you can say, whereas opposed with this new palette, the shimmers in here are beautiful. Like you've already heard me talk about, they are stunning, and I can definitely, I just want to note it right there, I can definitely tell a formula difference with their new shimmer, and it is outstanding. Is it worth getting a whole palette just for the shimmers? That's something you're gonna have to determine for yourself. For me personally, when I look at this palette, the shimmers are definitely the strong point. When I look at the mattes, I'm very uninspired. There are the two greens that totally saves this palette for me, absolutely, but when we're looking at the other mattes in this palette, it's just not for me. I was very uninspired, especially these 3 or 4 right here, these and this. I feel like you could have had 2 shades and captured all 4 of those. So like, I just feel like there was wasted opportunity for me personally when I go into this palette. I feel very uninspired when I'm going into the mattes of this palette, and that's why one of the looks I did a cut crease, a full cut crease, and I went like super light in my crease and just focused on the shimmers. And I feel like that's the way, for me personally, I'm gonna have the most fun with this palette. If I'm not doing just a very dark, smoky, or green crease work, I probably would just want to do a full cut crease and just focus on the shimmers for the eye look, because these are just so light and airy. And while they're very pretty, and I don't think that they're not pigmented, they're just so light on my skin it looks like they're not pigmented, if that makes sense. So for me with this palette, I'm very torn when I come to my overall thoughts and opinions, because I love the shimmers. The shimmers are out of this world amazing. So when I look at this palette, I'm like, is it worth purchasing just for those shimmers in there and you could just pair it with others? For me personally, if I was in a review channel, I honestly don't know. Even as a review channel, when this first came out and I saw the initial launch, at first I was like, yes, because I always say yes when I see pretty things. But when I was looking at it more, I was like, Katie, do you really need it? You're still using the Iceland palette. And then they did offer to send it to me, and I'm very grateful that I can review it for you. But I never really answered that question for myself when I was thinking about it. Like, am I going to buy it? Am I actually going to spend the money to get it and review it? Do I want to have this in my collection? I was very 50-50. So I feel like that pretty much sums up my overall thoughts. In the same manner of this being a yin and yang palette, I feel like that's very much my review, which I think is kind of funny because in one sense I'm just like, yes, it's gorgeous. Like these shimmers are just outstanding. Like they're just so beautiful. They're so shiny. But then at the other side of things, it's like, So yeah, that's basically going to be my review. If I was going into this palette knowing that I would use this and just always pair it with the greens, and then of course the middle shimmer shade there, Sun, I think it's a beautiful palette and totally worth it. It'll give you a lot of very stunning looks, but I feel like always using the greens in my crease or always just using a wash of color and doing a full cut crease would get old. But anyway, with that said, I feel like I'm just going to be going round and round giving you guys my thoughts and opinions and basically saying the same thing with different words, saying yes, I love it, but it has some cons. So I think this palette's definitely going to come down to what you prefer, what your preferences are, and what you think is worth it. For me, I am definitely going to keep this. I am going to enjoy having this in my collection. I think the artwork is beautiful. It's very, very pretty, very well done. But as far as the whole palette as a whole being worth it at the retail price that it was, that's where I'm kind of like, wait for a sale and pick it up if you are someone who really likes the shimmers, because the shimmers are, as I've said a million times, out of this world, outstanding, amazing. They did a great job, and I hope they continue to put this shimmer formula in all future palettes because it is beautiful, like so beautiful. I love the spectrum of color you get with the shimmers in this palette. They did a really good job with this side. Hit it out of the park. It is beautiful. So that's going to do it for my review today. I hope it was helpful. I know I'm kind of back and forth and I don't have a hard stance. I think it's a really nice palette, but it definitely has a couple faults. It has some weak areas in it that I couldn't overlook and that were definitely, you know, an issue for me when using the palette. So I did want to voice them here in my review. But I hope above everything it was informative for you guys and it helped you kind of decide if you wanted to purchase it or not. But yeah, with all that said, that's going to do it for my video today. Thank you so very much for watching, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up as it helps me in the whole YouTube algorithm. And if you want to continue getting daily content from me, I'm over on Instagram. I'm LadyKaden82. And yeah, with all that said, I will see you guys very soon in my next video. Bye guys.